All right, good morning. So it's Tuesday morning. Yesterday we started looking at factoring a little bit. We looked at common factors. So today we're going to look at another form of factoring. Um, so I'm going to share the screen here. So it is called the difference of squares. So when we look at the word squares, that means that a number was multiplied by itself in order to get that number. So for example, when we look at 9, 9 is a perfect square because it can be square rooted. It means that one number multiplied by itself gave the number 9. So if we look at this, for 9, we know that 3 times 3 gives us 9. So that means, in other words, that 3 squared has given us 9. We look at 24 for our next example. No number multiplied by itself will ever give us 24, so this is not a perfect square. But if we look at 36 here, 6 times 6 gives us 36. So in other words, 6 squared gives us 36. Okay, we look at x squared, that's pretty self-explanatory. X times x gives us x squared. Okay, and if we look at 16y squared, so that you would look at the numbers. So 16, so we know that 4 times 4 gives us 16. And y squared is the same thing as y times y. So if we split it up like this, we would get 16y squared. That is called a perfect square. So in other words, 4y squared, and you need to put it in brackets so that we know that we're squaring both the number and the variable, means 16y squared. Okay, and as a little review from yesterday, we're going to look at expanding a little bit. So if we look at our first one, we're going to FOIL. So first, so x times x, which gives us x squared. Outer, so x times -5 gives us 5x. Inner, so 5 times x gives us plus 5x. And then outer, or last, 5 times -5 gives us -25. Okay, and then we're going to put our like terms together. So x squared, there's no other x squared, so that stays the same. -5x plus 5x is 0. So we don't write anything for that. And then -25. So our answer becomes x squared minus 25. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for the second example. So 2m times 2m gives us 4m squared. 2m times -3 is -6m. 3 times 2m is positive or plus 6m. And then 3 times -3 is -9. So again, these guys are going to cancel out. We're going to get 0. So 4m squared minus 9 is our answer. And then we've got 4y times 4y, which is 16y squared. 4y times 2 is 8y. Negative 2 times 4y is negative 8y. And negative 2 times 2 is negative 8, or negative 4, sorry. So again, we're going to put our like terms together and we're left with 16y squared minus 4. So if we look carefully at the answers that we just got, we see a little bit of a pattern. So there's no, there are only two terms. There's no middle term, right? There's no 6m or 8y or whatnot. The resulting expression is a difference. So in other words, it's a subtraction. And the terms are perfect squares. So exactly like we saw above, those can be square rooted. Okay. So which of the following are difference of squares? Explain why or why not. So this one here, so we look, there's only two terms, so that's right. It's a subtraction between the two terms. It's not, so that means it's not a difference of squares. Okay, if we look at the second one, so yes, there are two terms. There's a subtraction between the two. Both can be square rooted and get a right answer. So this one is a difference of squares. Okay. Here, there are two terms. There is a subtraction. The only problem is we don't know the square root of 5. So that one is not a difference of squares. Okay. And if we look at the second one, so there are two terms. There's a subtraction between the two, but here we don't know the square root of 28. So it is not. So in other words, the only one that is difference of squares is this guy. Okay, so I'm going to clear this. We're going to move forward. Okay, so to find the difference of squares, I've written out the steps. So the first is to find the square root of the first and the last term. Our next step is to write two sets of brackets containing the square root of each term. One bracket will have a plus sign in the middle, and the other one will have a minus sign in the middle. Okay, so for example, we'll look at the first one. So we're going to do the square root of x squared. And we're going to do the square root of 16. So first, I shouldn't have skipped that, but you can tell, so there are two terms. There is a subtraction in the middle, and we can square root both of them. So this is a difference of square. So first things first, we do the square root of x squared, which is just x. Okay. And then we do the square root of 16, which is 4. So we're going to write 4 at the end of both brackets. And like it says, one bracket will have a plus sign, the next will have a minus sign, and that's it. Easy as pie. So we look at the next one. There are two terms. There's a subtraction in the middle, and both of them can be square rooted. So we do the square root of b squared. Put it in our bracket, so this is going to be different here. So it's going to be b. We put it at the start of both brackets. We can do the square root of 25, which is 5. This is god awful. Okay, so we put 5 at the end of both, and we put a plus sign in one and a minus sign in the next, and that's it. Okay. So now we're going to look at the next one. So there are two terms. There's a subtraction in the middle, and we could do the square root of both. So the square root of 49. I'm going to write it a little lower here. So the square root of 49 is 7. So we'll put that at the start of our bracket. The square root of y squared is y. So we'll put that at the end of our bracket. And you do a plus sign in one, negative side on the other. Okay. And then we look at D. So there's two terms. There's a subtraction, but we can't do the square root of 3. We can't do the square root of 27. So it is important that you look for a common factor first. No matter what, you always look for a common factor. So what we had looked at yesterday. Okay. So a common factor between 3 and 27, if you were to do your list or you know your multiplication tables like the back of your hand, you would find that it is 3. Okay, so first things first, you're going to factor. So you're going to take the factor out. So if we take 3, we're left with negative or m squared, and then negative. So 27 divided by 3 is 9. And then we can look inside this bracket. So inside the bracket, we can do the difference of squares. So we can find the square root of m squared. So we're going to put our 3 in front of one of the brackets. We're going to put our m where we would normally do it. Put our m. And then the square root of 9 is 3. And 3 at the end of this guy. And we put a plus sign and a minus. And there you are. Okay, so I'm going to clear this up. You've got quite a few questions to do here. Yeah, and I will post the second video shortly.